want to quote from excerpts from an article that appeared in an Israeli publication entitled Breaking Israel News. 120 years ago, this is the title, 120 years ago, 10 Christians fulfilled Zechariah 8:23 at Herzl's first Zionist Congress. Exactly 120 years ago, Theodor Herzl invited 10 Christians to the first Zionist Congress, thereby paving the way for the modern state of Israel while adhering precisely and perhaps unconsciously to a biblical prophecy. August 31st marks the summation of 120th anniversary of the first Zionist Congress held in Basel, Switzerland, convened and chaired by Theodor Herzl. 200 delegates from 17 countries and 26 press correspondents attended the event. Preceding the Balfour Declaration by 20 years, that took place in November of 1917, 20 years after that, and also the Declaration of the State of Israel by half a century, 1948. The secular Zionist movement was supported by a minority of Jews. Both the Reform and Orthodox streams of Judaism opposed it. Surprisingly, there was support from some Christians for a Jewish state, and 10 non-Jews, Gentiles, were invited to attend the Congress. Even more surprising was that despite Herzl's decidedly non-biblical approach to the process of establishing a Jewish state, he probably unintentionally fulfilled Zechariah's prophecy by inviting exactly 10 non-Jews. And it's a quote from Zechariah 8:23, where it says, "This is what Yahweh Almighty says. In those days, 10 men from all the languages and nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem of his robe and say, quote, 'Let us go with you because we have heard that God is with you.'" The Jewish connection the Christian connection to the Jewish return to Israel is still alive today. It's growing exponentially, especially among Christian evangelicals. The very existence of the state of Israel is transforming the church by challenging replacement theology, which basically affirms and teaches, has historically, that the church is now the heir of God's covenant promises for a homeland for the Jews. Though little is known about the Christians who attended the Zionist Congress, one Christian Zionist is mentioned extensively throughout Herzl's diary as having an enormous influence on him and on the fledgling Zionist movement. Reverend William Henry Heckler, a Restoration Anglican clergyman, believed that a major event would occur in 1898 that would lead to the restoration of the Jews. In early March 1896, Heckler happened upon Herzl's book, The Jewish State, which had been published a few weeks earlier. Heckler used his political connections to introduce Herzl to leaders and influential people in order to advance his mission all across the country, including the United States. Heckler did this. And as I read this, I was reminded of Paul's words in Romans chapter 11, where he's speaking of this relationship of Christians, Gentiles, and Jews. And he says in verse 17, Romans chapter 11, "If some of the branches, namely the Jews, some of them have been broken off, they're not believers, they're not followers of Jesus, and you, though a wild olive shoot," and the olive tree here is a metaphor for the Israel of God. And he's saying that Gentiles have been engrafted to that. Now notice what it does not say. It does not say they're engrafted into the church. The term church is not even mentioned in Romans until chapter 16. But he said, you've been engrafted in and you now share in the nourishing sap of the olive root. Do not boast of yourself of these branches, over these branches. If you do, consider this: you do not support the root, but the root supports you. And he summarizes it by saying this in verse 25. I do not want you to be ignorant. And he's speaking primarily to the Gentiles. I don't want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers, so that you may not be conceited. Don't be ignorant, don't be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel will be saved. And who constitutes all Israel? Those who are Jewish believers and those who are Gentile believers. When Gentiles become believers, they don't become Jews. They become a part of the Israel of God. The same thing is true of Jews, a part of the Israel of God. And that's the ultimate manifestation of Herzl's vision for a Jewish state. Covenant promises are still alive and well, and the Israel of God is growing exponentially as we speak. And they will continue to grow until Messiah comes. Till next week, Od Ki Yavo Shiloh, or until Messiah comes, Yivareka Yahweh. Yahweh bless you, bless those you love, bless those who love you.